Hello, this is MTG Sly Guy with another Magic the Gathering deck tech. I'm relatively new to the game still, but this is my first attempt at a modern deck build, so I figured I would share it with you today. Starting off with the mana base, I have 4 Windswept Heath. It's the green-white fetch land. Tap it, pay 1 life, and search your library for a forest or plains card and put it onto the battlefield. That's 4 of them. After that, I have 3 Flooded Strand. It's the blue-white fetch land. Tap it, pay 1 life, search your library for a plains or an island card. It is a 3 of in the deck. After that, we have 2 Temple Garden. It's the green-white shock land. Enters tapped unless you pay 2 life. Then 2 Hallowed Fountain, the blue-white shock land. And then 2 Breeding Pool, it's the green-blue shock land. This is a Bant build. It's kind of my take on the green-white Hexproof Aura deck that you see running around, also sometimes known as a Bogle deck. Up next, Razorverge Thicket. Enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or fewer other lands. So this deck has a very low curve, so it's pretty useful. More often than not, it either comes in untapped or it doesn't really bother me if it comes in tapped because I usually have 3 or more lands. Up next I have 3 Horizon Canopy. Pay 1 life. It's basically a pain land, but it only taps for green or white, so you always have to pay 1 life, which can be a pain, but the fact that it comes in untapped and gives me both colors of mana is pretty useful. And also I can pay 1 and tap it and sacrifice it and draw a card, so it can be a late game card advantage. That's a 3 of in the deck. After that I have 1 of each basic land, 1 forest, 1 island, and 1 plains, just because Blood Moon is a thing. And finally 1 Dryad Arbor. It counts as a creature and a land, so if I have to sack a creature, I can sack this instead of sacrificing one of the creatures I've invested auras in. And it also taps for a mana, but it doesn't tap when it first enters because it suffers from summoning sickness. It's one of the drawbacks of being both a creature and a land. So it's just a 1 of. Starting with the creatures, we have 4 Gladecover Scouts. It's 1/1 Hexproof for 1. Pretty self-explanatory. Drop this on turn 1, and on turn 2 you start pumping it up with enchantments. It's a 4 of course. After that, the namesake of the deck, Slippery Bogle, for 1 hybrid blue or green. Slippery Bogle can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control. Basically, hexproof. It is also a 4 of in the deck. After that, we have one of the main reasons I made it a Bant deck instead of just a green-white deck, and that is Invisible Stalker from Innistrad for 1 colorless and 1 blue. It is a 1/1 hexproof and unblockable. So I can start pumping him up on turn 3, and yeah, he's pretty unstoppable unless there's indirect removal or self-sacrifice, because he's hexproof and also can't be blocked. So it is a 4 of in the deck. And then finally for creatures, I have 4 Kor Spiritdancer for 1 colorless and 1 white. It gets +2/+2 for each aura attached to it, and whenever you cast an aura spell, you may draw a card. I don't usually invest too many auras on this. I almost never enchant this directly. It's mainly in the deck for the card advantage that it produces, because I have so many low drop enchantments that I often draw several cards off of this, sometimes just in one turn. If this doesn't get removed, it gives me a huge card advantage. So it is also a 4 of in the deck. And that's it for my creatures. I have a total of 17 creatures in the deck, including the Dryad Arbor, which sometimes might seem a bit low, but so far I haven't had much trouble with it. I've only taken this deck to 2 events so far, but I've come in first and third, so it's gone pretty well for me. Okay, and now on to the non-creature spells, which are pretty much all enchantment auras. I have 2 Aqueous Form. Aqueous Form, enchanted creature can't be blocked, and whenever enchanted creature attacks, you scry 1, so I can fix my draws. It's pretty handy for when I have something like Kor Spiritdancer out, or if I'm thinking about sacrificing my land, my Horizon Canopy, for a card. So it is a 2-of in the deck. Up next I have Spider Umbra. For 1 green, enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and has reach. So it's for flying defense. But I don't really have much removal in the main deck, so being able to defend against flyers is pretty handy. Plus it's Umbra armor, so if my creature does happen to get destroyed, or if there's a situation where it would be destroyed, I can simply remove this from it and it still stays on the field. It is a 3-of. Up next I have Rancor. It is a 4-of in the deck. For 1 green, enchanted creature gets +2/+0 and has trample. And whenever Rancor is put into a graveyard from play, return it to its owner's hand. So as long as what I'm enchanting doesn't get removed before this resolves, this thing just keeps popping back into my hand. It's really hard to get rid of. And it is, as I stated, a 4-of in the deck. The ability to give trample is just really handy. If I don't have something that's unblockable or something that has protection from creatures, the trample is really good. Next up, 4 Ethereal Armor for 1 white. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each enchantment you control and has first strike. This is probably the second best enchantment I have in the deck, just because it feeds off of all the other auras that I have, all the other enchantments that I have in play. And creatures can get really big really fast, like especially if I have multiple of these enchanted on a creature. It is a 4-of in the deck. After that I have Spirit Mantle. For 1 colorless and 1 white, enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and has protection from creatures. So if I have a creature that isn't unblockable, if it is in my Invisible Stalker, I can put this on a creature, and it basically not only can't be blocked, but I can use it as a blocker against anything. Like if somebody ramps up in a devotion deck or some sort of a green ramp deck, and they have a huge creature, I can just block and not have anything to worry about. It is a 4-of in the deck also. And then the most important card in any hexproof deck, Daybreak Coronet. For 2 white, enchant creature with another aura attached to it. That's a rather unique stipulation. I don't think I've seen it in any other cards in Magic, that you need to have an aura attached to a creature in order to cast this, but it's not really much of a problem in this deck. Enchant creature with another aura attached to it. An enchanted creature gets +3/+3, has first strike, vigilance, and lifelink, which is just ridiculous. This is one of my finishers. Once I get this in play, the game doesn't usually last much longer. So it is, of course, 4-of in the deck. And then finally, the only 3-drop aura. I think it's the only 3-drop in my entire deck, actually. Unflinching Courage, for 1 colorless, 1 green, and 1 white. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2 and has trample and lifelink. So again, not quite as good as Daybreak Coronet, but it doesn't have the stipulation of needing another aura. And again, this one also, the games don't last much longer when I have one of these on the field. It is a 2-of in the deck. And then finally, I'll just quickly go through my sideboard. My sideboard is a little bit different, possibly from other lists you may have seen of hexproof auras, simply because the metagame in my local game store is a little bit different. I have to worry a lot about artifacts, because the main thing that people pull out against me is Spellskite, and that thing can be a real pain in the butt if I don't have an answer for it. It pretty much shuts down my entire strategy. So, for 1 colorless and 1 white, we have Stony Silence. activated abilities of artifacts can't be activated, so that they can't, you know, pay life or pay 1 blue to activate its ability. It shuts down Spellskite basically. And also, this can be a bit of a pain in the butt for Affinity, which a few people at a game store, local game store, do play. And also for artifacts, we have Nature's Claim for 1 green, destroy target artifact or enchantment, and its controller gains 4 life. I don't really care about the life gain, it's really not relevant for me. Usually swinging through with pretty fat creatures that they can't do anything about, so their 4 life isn't really around for very long. It is a 2 of in the deck. After that, we have, of course, Leyline of Sanctity. For 2 colorless and 2 white, if Leyline of Sanctity is in your opening hand, you may begin the game with it on the battlefield, and it gives me hexproof. I can't be the target of spells or abilities my opponents control, so it shuts down Liliana, it shuts down any spell that targets me to make me sacrifice a creature. It's just a good card. It shuts down a lot of their sideboarding strategies against me. So it is, of course, a 4 of. Up next, just some creature removal. 3 Path to Exile. For 1 white, exile target creature. Its controller may search his or her library for a basic land and put that onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle his or her library. It is a, as I think it's a 3 of in the deck. Just for target removal, something that if I want to interact, if there's a situation where I want to interact with my opponent, it's the most efficient form of removal. It's pretty much a staple in Modern. Up next, Swan Song. For 1 blue, counter target enchantment, instant, or sorcery spell, its controller puts a 2/2 blue bird token with flying onto the battlefield. This comes in against blue or red control decks. Anything that wants to affect my creatures. I actually won game 2. I won game 1 in the final round last Friday. We were playing for first place, and in game 2, my opponent sided in Hibernation, I believe it's called, which returns all green creatures to my hand, and I was able to counter it with this, and he just said, okay, good game. So that's why this is in here, basically for any instant speed interactions with me that would affect me. The 2/2 flyer usually isn't relevant because I have so much protection from creatures and unblockable aspects of Invisible Stalker. So giving them a 2/2 flyer isn't usually an issue, especially in the situation where I would need this, which is usually late game when I've already set up a winning condition on the battlefield. So yeah, it's 2 of in the deck. And then finally, I did have 2 of these in the sideboard, but there's really only 1 person at my local game store that plays mono red burn, so I only have 1 of these. But Kor Firewalker, it's for 2 white, protection from red, and whenever a player casts a red spell, you may gain 1 life, and it's a 2/2 for 2. So he comes out against the burn matchups, the mono red matchups. So that concludes my deck tech of my first Modern deck. I've played it a couple times. It's done pretty well for me so far, and it's a really fun deck, really fast deck to play with, and I rather enjoy it. It's not quite a tier 1 deck, but it's kind of a budget type deck for Modern. So I hope you all enjoyed my video. Feel free to like, subscribe, or comment below with any suggestions you would do to make the deck a little bit different, to tweak it. Thank you very much.